Hey guys, today I have another knife making build video for you. This time I was using an old lawnmower blade. It's something I've never used in the past, but I've heard of other people making them. More so maybe like machetes and stuff like that, but I wanted to give it a try because now I have 3 of them. So I figured if this will make a serviceable knife, it'd be a fun little project. It turns out the design I use here with this, with these lawnmower blades that I have, you can actually get 2 blades out of 1 knife, which was kind of nice. It was a pleasant surprise. The one thing I did not do during this project, kind of until the end, is I didn't temper the steel. So I was actually unknowingly I was working with relatively hard steel this whole time, which became quite a pain in the butt. And due to the thickness of the steel and all that, it was just killing me the whole time. I was getting so frustrated trying to cut through this steel. And clearly, the glories of fast forwarding a video makes it seem like it was pretty quick and easy, but boy, it was not a quick and easy process. So if you're going to follow my steps and make one of these for yourself, just be sure to save yourself the headache and anneal the steel in the first place. That way you're not chasing around hardened steel the whole time. But here in the beginning and for the majority of the early part of the video, I'm just going to be shaping it. My normal thing that I do with any knife I'm making is I cut it as close as I can to the rough profile on the cutoff disc on the angle grinder. Then I progress to the grinding disc, just kind of clean up the rough jagged edges that are left from cutting it out. And then from the grinding wheel I switch to a flat disc. Flat disc I switch to files, and then just kind of rotate between sandpaper, files, maybe the 1x30, whatever it is, just to kind of get the overall look and clean feel of the knife that I'm looking for. And I always like to try and drill my holes prior to heat treating the knife, but that didn't work in this video, as you'll see, because like I said, I was dealing with hardened steel. So I'll shut up now, let you guys just watch, but I'll jump in here and there as I see fit. So I hope you guys enjoy, and if you stay tuned till the very end, you'll get to see this knife being used and abused, both shaving my arm and cutting its way through a brick. So I hope to see you at the very end of the video. So what you'll see here is the first of several attempts to drill these holes for the handle scales that I fully intended on putting on this knife, just never got around to, so it was kind of wasted time. But the problem I was running into here was I have a sharp drill bit, and I've drilled plenty of holes through metal before, and I very quickly recognized the feeling that I was running into, and that was hardened steel. So as you can see, I was getting through a decent portion, a surprisingly deep amount actually, of the metal before running into the core that was actually harder than the outside. So my first thought was I would just grab a propane tank and blast it, and although it did gain me a little bit, it was clearly not enough for me to get it all the way through. So I slapped that bad boy in my little propane forge, or my charcoal forge, got it red hot, let it cool down slowly, and from then on it was like working with butter compared to what I had been fighting. So I really should have done that in the very beginning, but it didn't cross my mind that I was going through hardened steel until I drilled into the tang of the knife and realized that I wasn't getting anywhere. So again, I will say one last time, if you're gonna make a lawnmower blade into a knife, anneal it before you give yourself the headache of trying to drill through hardened steel and just totally trash your drill bits. So when I heat treat a knife that's kind of a mystery metal or an unknown carbon content, for example, files, anything, maybe a lawnmower blade, something like that, I always just kind of stick to the same heat treat process, and that's just to get the whole blade as evenly as you can to a non-magnetic temperature, let it soak for just a minute longer, and then I quench in water as long as I'm dealing with a thick blade, because your hardest, your most violent quench that you can do is going to be into water, and that's going to give you the hardest blade that you can. And especially when you're working with a mystery metal like this, you're kind of fighting to get as much hardness as you can. So then from hardening it, if I don't know the carbon content, again, I'll put it in my home oven. Typically for a shorter period of time, I'll do 1 hour at 400 degrees, and that's the only cycle I do. Typically from there, that's enough to draw it back to where it's not super brittle, but you'll also have a serviceable edge. And it's kind of a guessing game, but that's been what works for me most of the time when dealing with these mystery metals, and it actually gave me a pretty darn good edge on this one. I couldn't tell you my guess on the Rockwell hardness, but I know it's not like a 62 or anything high like that, but it's certainly functional, and I was very pleasantly surprised at how well it held up in my little torture test I did. The other thing I will say is, like I said, with the whole drilling of the handles, I have some walnut handle scales with the holes drilled. I have the pins made for it and everything. I just realized I was out of epoxy and I wanted to be done with this knife. It was turning out to be a little uglier than I intended, so I will likely go back and put the walnut handles on whenever I get some more epoxy in. But with this whole corona nonsense going on right now, I'm not really making too many trips to the store. But I ended up doing a horrible paracord wrap. I hate those. Don't recommend anybody ever put them on a knife because they're an abomination. But I slapped that on there so I could kind of finish this video and just test out this blade before I went ahead and made the second piece of that lawnmower blade into a knife. But as you can see here, I also, just to kind of play around with it, I put a mustard patina on it. I'm not huge on the look, but I figured, might as well try it all on this ugly behemoth of a knife. So the next thing I figured would be completely logical was to cut through a brick with it. And as you can see here, it did, with very little edge damage. There was basically no rolling, there was no chipping, but it did create just kind of a flat spot where I had banged it up against the brick. The other things you can't see that I did on camera was I batoned through some oak, some really gnarly pear wood, and just some variety of stuff. I threw the knife at some trees, it missed, bounced off, stuck itself in the dirt, did a whole bunch of stuff, and by the end of it, this is the very last thing you're seeing, it just had a little bit of that sharp edge was gone, and right toward the tip there was kind of a bit of a dent. But other than that, I mean, you could expect that out of almost any knife if you put it through the stuff I had put this through. So whoever said you can't make a decent blade out of a lawnmower blade, they were probably just selling you $10.95 on Amazon, to be completely honest. So it ended up not the prettiest knife in the world, but it's functional and it was a good time. So I do recommend you make your own, and have a blessed day.